Here's more from Donald Trump's inaugural address from inside the Capitol Rotunda.
As we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly in complete disrepair. We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. From this moment on, America's decline is over. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. We will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. There are only two genders, male and female. We are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. We will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
Gene Robinson, long list of promises in that inaugural address. Many of them will be difficult, including instantly bringing the prices down that have plagued this country for too many years now. I'm curious, though, we haven't heard from you yet this morning. Just your snapshot view of the last 24 hours. What did we see and where are we headed?
Well, number one, we saw Donald Trump doing a lot of what he said he would do. So no one should be surprised by this flurry of executive orders. He said he was going to free the January 6 rioters. He called them hostages. He said he was going to issue these executive orders, ending wokeness or sort of punishing federal workers, you name it. He said he was going to do all this stuff. One of his executive orders instructs the Pentagon, presumably instructs Pete Hegseth, since he cleared committee yesterday, and it's pretty clear he's going to be confirmed, instructing him to develop a plan to militarize, for the Pentagon to militarize the southern border. I mean, and he said he was going to do all this stuff. So people voted for it, and that's what they got. I got an email from a friend of mine who lives abroad, and it kind of likes Trump, is kind of Trump curious, and but he said, I was disappointed with the speech. There was no grace or magnanimity in it, and I laughed. I mean, you expected grace and magnanimity from Donald Trump? I didn't, and I don't think anyone should have. And that's not to say that all his supporters are like him. I have graceful and magnanimous discussions with Trump supporters, but this is Donald Trump. I mean, and we have for years chronicled his character flaws, his insecurities, his ego. All that is on florid display already, and the second Trump term is just beginning. So this is really a buckle your seatbelts moment, I think, because I think we're just seeing the beginning of what we're going to see for the next 4 years.
President Trump delivered on one of those promises last night from the Oval Office when he issued a blanket pardon to nearly all of the rioters who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. The pardon includes hundreds of people sentenced to significant prison time for their convictions on serious felonies like assaulting police officers with deadly or dangerous weapons, fire extinguishers, flagpoles. You've seen the video. As the Wall Street Journal notes, the breadth of the pardons contradicted the case-by-case approach Trump and his allies had signaled ahead of his inauguration, and it flew in the face of admonitions from some Republican allies, including his own Vice President, J.D. Vance, and his choice for Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Joining us now, Ryan Riley, who covers the Justice Department and federal law enforcement for NBC News. Ryan, good morning. You've covered the story so closely. This was the largest FBI investigation in American history. If you can, walk us through how the president came to this point, because there was talk as recently as yesterday morning that these January 6 pardons would be for nonviolent offenders who were still in jail, not for the most serious offenders like those convicted and serving long terms for seditious conspiracy.
Yeah, I think one of the key figures here is Ed Martin. He's someone I wrote about last night. He's was on the platform committee for the RNC. He's this longtime conservative activist, and he was on the board of the Patriot Freedom Project. That's an organization that was started by the aunt of a January 6th defendant, actually a January 6th defendant who looked like Hitler in some photos that were on his phone. That was sort of famous, went a little bit viral, and he stormed the Capitol. There's that woman who started, Cynthia Hughes, who started this organization, and then you have this individual, Ed Martin, who is on the board of that organization. Ed Martin is now the interim U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, meaning that he's the top federal prosecutor overseeing all of these cases. This is someone who has spread conspiracy theories about January 6th. There was actually a blog post that he made one time and put together some video, and the title of it was Mr. Coffee Set Up January 6th. And I know that just sounds like a crazy headline to sort of throw out there. What are you talking about, Ryan? What he was talking about is the gallows that were set up on the Capitol, near the Capitol, right? And this was he launched this really intense investigation into who set up those gallows. And then because this person he called Mr. Coffee vaguely walked in the direction north, just vaguely, of the FBI field office, he surmised and presented in this video that was an individual who set up the gallows and was the FBI behind all of this. So just a bunch of internet garbage essentially here, compiled together, put forward as some sort of argument, which would never even come near coming up to the standard for the court of law. And meanwhile, what you have in all of these cases, just overwhelming, undeniable evidence that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that these January 6 defendants are guilty of the crimes that they have been convicted of by either a jury of their peers, by a federal judge, or because they stood before a judge, swore in, and admitted that they assaulted those officers on camera. There's zero question about any of this because these cases have been so thoroughly looked at. And it's just stepping back, it's just sort of astonishing to me that, disinformation not only created January 6th itself, but I think created the sort of vibes, I guess, right, that we have here that allowed these sort of pardons to go forward, because there's so much misinformation, disinformation that is out there about January 6th that it really just sort of overwhelmed the system. That this wasn't something that Democrats were able to really combat, this amount of misinformation that we were hearing, sort of all these crazy conspiracy theories about, it was Antifa, and it was the FBI, or maybe it was Antifa and the FBI together. So, there's just a lot of garbage that's been out there, and I think that's what's really been able to set the standard for these pardons.
It's important to underline, as you did, that these were people convicted at trial by juries of their peers who listened to the evidence in the case and made that decision, and then others, hundreds more of them, pleaded guilty to what they did on that day and now freed. So how did we get from J.D. Vance saying 9 days ago on Fox News that, quote, obviously people who committed violence against police officers should not be released, that a few days later, Pam Bondi, very likely to become the next Attorney General, condemned people at her questioning before Congress who committed violence on January 6th. How did we get from that narrative that, of course, the people who committed violence should stay in jail, but not the others, to open up the jails?
I mean, clearly this was the first defeat of the Trump administration's Team Normal, right? Whatever contingent of Team Normal is still there and decided to join up this time around, I think lost out here, because obviously this is going to be, if Democrats sort of step up to the plate and, go through a lot of these cases and make political hay out of it, and sort of, as Donnie was talking about, fight back and in this information environment, that's, then that's something that they can pick from, because there's just so much material that that you could go from, right? You could go through these cases right now and say, and not setting aside all of the January 6th stuff, there's a bunch of pedophiles amongst these January 6th defendants, people who've been convicted of statutory rape. You could focus on them. In fact, someone who was just arrested a couple of weeks ago, he was actually serving some time because he looked at kiddie porn and had possession of kiddie porn. So that's something that Democrats could theoretically focus on, but there hasn't been sort of a lot of real fight. And I think, with the January 6th committee, when you go back to that, what the January 6th committee decided to do was they decided that Americans couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time. They decided that they had to go with this sort of just Trump-only narrative. And I think the opening that allowed for was because the January 6th committee didn't call out some of these huge law enforcement failures that we saw before January 6th. They left their backside open. They had an open flak, right? So when you sort of had these conspiracy theories about, oh, what if it was the FBI? Those things were allowed to grab hold because they weren't smacked down by the January 6th committee in the first place. So I think that that's one of the major sort of, failures when we look back at this era, what exactly happened and allowed for this information environment to be implemented that allowed for these pardons to happen.